Yo, 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 what's up? Chris Simms Unbuttoned, and always I am with my friend Jake Croucher of PointsBet. It's week 18, NFL season. I mean, we got lots of good stuff to talk about. First off, Happy New Year, dude. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Happy New Year, Chris.
Thank you, Slugger. Thank you very much. All right, here's one that I want to just jump into right away. I'm a little like motivated by this one. All right, I'm gonna have some strong words here, but I do want to get your take here. All right, so first off, Coach of the Year award. Right now, look at PointsBet. Matt LaFleur's the favorite. We got a 3-horse race, basically. Matt LaFleur, Zach Taylor, Mike Vrabel. With LaFleur having the best odds at plus 150, Zach Taylor plus 200, Vrabel at plus 225, and then there's a steep drop-off to Bill Belichick. You know, first off, give me your assessment there, a little bit of those top three, and just where the market's at and some of your thoughts behind all of this.
Yeah, so really interesting race. I think one of the few races that can really be decided in the final week of the season, potentially, particularly if Vrabel locks up the 1 seed. But I think the first thing to note about this award is that it is very difficult to figure out each year. Look back at 2017, where Doug Peterson took the Eagles from 7-9, missing the playoffs, to 13-3 and a 1 seed, and got 1 vote out of 50. So it just seems that every year there's just kind of a collective sentiment where everyone just coalesces and decides that this is the guy who's going to win. But the reason that we have LaFleur the favorite is just that now this is 3 years in a row of 13 wins. Yes, he has Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers wasn't putting up these win totals before LaFleur.
Right.
Zach Taylor fits the cleanest case, which is just, improving your win total from the year before, going from 4 wins to 10, winning the AFC North. And then Vrabel, who I think in a way is the most deserving candidate, where the Titans have used 88 players this year, which I think is an NFL record. They've gone, they're probably going to get the 1 seed despite missing Derrick Henry for half the season. And the one thing that is consistent in this award is that you get penalized for having an elite quarterback in this award, because it's just easier to separate the coaching from the quarterback position if you don't have a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league. So I think it's only 3 years of the past 30 or so that the MVP, which is usually a quarterback, and the coach of the year have come from the same team. So that's another thing in Vrabel's favor too, because Tannehill, as good as he is, isn't as good as Joe Burrow, and he isn't as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
So that's just one thing to consider too. But yeah, it is still, I think, pretty open. But I think you've got some feelings on this one, right?
Well, I do have some feelings. First of all, you said a lot of great things. I mean, I'd love to see Mike Vrabel win it. There's no doubt. I mean, you explained it, the injuries, some of the things they've had to overcome. His coaching is on display always. He's a great manager of football games. His team really doesn't mess things up. They always have the right approach. He's kind of steady Eddie. It's not always sexy, but here they are, like you said, number 1 seed without their best player for a good part of the last stretch of the season here. So I'm with that. I do favor Matt LaFleur in this conversation a little bit because of, you mentioned it. The win totals weren't the same, before he got there. I mean, how many years of off-season disaster do we have to hear from Green Bay to where it doesn't really affect them on the field once we start playing? It's, can him and Aaron Rodgers get together and come up with an audible thing the first year he's there? Then the second year, it's Jordan Love got drafted. Holy crap, everything's falling apart in Green Bay. Oh, they're back in the NFC Championship game. And then, of course, this year, Rodgers wants to be traded. They promised him he's going to be traded. He's going to be out of here. Oh, bam, here they are back at the number 1 seed. So I favor LaFleur. The one I don't get is Zach Taylor. I got respect for Zach Taylor, but like last week we were going, we don't know if the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. Then they win and beat the Chiefs, and all of a sudden we're going to go, whoa, he's coach of the year because of 1 game. I don't think that qualifies you for that. Again, a great job by him, but I don't know. Do you see my logic there? I don't understand why he's up in the class of Vrabel and LaFleur. I think you kind of explained it because of the simple win-loss theory, but that to me doesn't mean you just automatically get to be a top 2 or top 3 candidate for coach of the year.
Yep, no, I think that makes sense. I think with Taylor, his case is that 2 years ago they were a 2-win team.
Yep.
And he's come in,
right,
and now they're a 10 to 11 win team, and they're going to win the division.
Yep.
A division that they were 20-1 preseason to win, which means we thought they were about a 5% chance to win the division, and they've done it. But I agree. I think that this Cincinnati team, it's all about Joe Burrow, because yes, they were a 2-win team 2 years ago, and Zach Taylor, he takes them to where they are now, but it's really Joe Burrow who's taken them to where they are now.
No doubt.
And I think as well, with Zach Taylor, in terms of his coaching, what's easily definable? Like, early in the season, Brandon Staley was the favorite for this award because he had something that was just so easily identifiable as coaching, where he had that game against Cleveland where they just went for it every fourth down,
right,
and they won the game because of that. What does Zach Taylor really do week to week that is easily definable outside of, finally let Joe Burrow loose? I think that, Zach Taylor, he is one of the more conservative coaches in the league in terms of, calling runs for Joe Mixon on early downs, in terms of his fourth down play calling. Think back to the game against the Niners where there were some really conservative decisions in that game, going for field goals and not going for it, that I think cost them. So, look, I agree. I wouldn't necessarily, personally, I wouldn't be voting for Zach Taylor. I'm not sure he'd even be in my top three.
Right.
I think that Nick Sirianni's case versus Zach Taylor is actually fairly close.
I agree.
You look at Sirianni taking the Eagles from a non-playoff team into the playoffs and doing it with Jalen Hurts instead of Joe Burrow. So I think that, Taylor, he is getting a lot of buzz now, and people are betting on him too. People think that he's going to win, but I suspect when it all comes down to it, I think LaFleur will win. And I think that Vrabel is also there too. But is there anyone further down this list that, you look at who maybe they won't necessarily win, but could finish in the top 2 or 3?
Well, that's a good question. I think the Sirianni one would have been the one I would have looked at as like the outside guy that could at least get in the top 3. And of course, still, I know Belichick and the Patriots lost 2 games in a row, but again, I don't think most of the football world expected the Patriots to be sitting here in Week 18 with still a chance to win the AFC East, not with this team, just being recently built with a rookie quarterback. So he'd be the other guy I would throw in there. But I think your logic is right. That's where I look at it. LaFleur changed the culture in Green Bay in a positive way. Yes, Rodgers was there, and that helps. There's no doubt. Vrabel is the culture in Tennessee. And that, to me, is why they're the lead dogs there. And the scary thing, though, I think is something you said at the very start. It seems to be a award where collusion goes on. It's like all the guys that got to vote for this call, like, who you voting for? Who you voting for? Who you voting for? Okay, let's do that. And that doesn't always make sense to me. And that's where it's a hard one to gauge as far as you're going to bet or do anything like that.
Definitely. It is a tough one where it just seems like, everyone just decides that it's going to be the year of Matt LaFleur because he didn't get it the past 2 years. Normally coaches don't win with what LaFleur has done this year. Normally you have to have at least a 4-win improvement, or you have to do it with a quarterback who's not one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. But I just think that with everything that's happened in Green Bay this year, with all the offseason drama, with what's happened with Rodgers, with also losing David Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, Darius Smith, going into Arizona, who were the 1 seed at the time, and beating Arizona without Devontae Adams. I think that LaFleur, he is probably the guy. I think this award would be done if he'd beaten Kansas City with Jordan Love.
Yeah,
then it would be over.
That's right.
The fact that he didn't win that game has left the door a little bit open, but I think you look back at that game, and I think that game just strengthens LaFleur's case. The fact that he was with Jordan Love, who did not play well, who did not look like he was ready for that moment, and they were still driving in the fourth quarter to take the lead in that game against Kansas City, who are one of the 2 best teams in football. So I think LaFleur is the guy. I think that, 2 guys who aren't going to win, and they're probably not even going to get many votes, but I think their names should still be mentioned, are Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, because those 2 situations in Pittsburgh and Baltimore, like those teams, neither of them are going to make the playoffs, I don't think, barring a miracle. But just with everything those teams have endured, Baltimore with all their injuries, and Pittsburgh just enduring not being that good, the fact that they're going into the last week of the season with a chance to make the playoffs, I think, is a reflection of those coaches and what they've done. I think if Harbaugh, with all these close losses, if just 2 or 3 had gone his way, I think he might even be favourite for the award if the Ravens were in position to win the AFC North. But they're not, so I suspect it will probably be Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, good thoughts there, and it's good for you to show some love to Harbaugh and Tomlin. I agree with you 100% there. They deserve some respect, certainly, for what they did, some tough situations. I think we're on the same page. I lean LaFleur, no doubt about it. I think we see that the same way. All right, good video. I like your thoughts. That's why you're the Aaron Rodgers of PointsBet. That's why you are. I don't know who the hell I am, but I'm not you. I know that. Peace out. Talk to you soon, Jay. You the man.
Pleasure, Chris.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.